I can hear it when people, I mean, I think a lot of people rediscovered gardening in the pandemic, or I can't hear any more about sourdough starters. I have hit my limit on my interested face that I can
like,
create.
oh, you're making sourdough.
Oh, no,
Great.
not again.
That's nice.
But I think the idea of falling in a big tar pit of attention.
It's just lovely. And I'm not a sourdough maker, but I get it, I get that process of tending to something, handling it.
Yeah.
It's a ritual, isn't it? And and it produces something. And I think so many of these processes we're talking about end up in a kind of exchange of gifts as well. They don't stay with us. We give our loaves of bread away and knitting,
And then we think of others.
Making jam.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, all of those things. And I think gardening is one of them too. I mean, you give away the vegetables you grow. My grandma used to give everyone a little posy of flowers from her garden wrapped up in tinfoil around the bottom. It's a nice thing to do.
And then you learn to care when things happen.
Yeah.
You want us to be more aware of the when.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of I'm just thinking of like supermarket life is there's no when I can have a watermelon at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Re-engaging with the seasons. It's just, it's environmentally a good thing to do, but it's also another shortcut to enchantment. It's a way to notice these incredible transformations that happen across the year and to be part of that actually. And I've for a long time shopped locally in farmers markets and things, and so I'm quite I grew up in a house that grew its own vegetables, so I'm very absorbed in the idea of only eating certain things at certain times of year, but it's something you can learn to do. You can learn to not expect strawberries in the winter. And the great thing about that is that when you eat strawberries, they always taste good then because they're in season. Yeah. They're much better.
They're not gross.
Yeah. But it's actually a very lovely way to live, and it's just as convenient. But it engages your brain because you're constantly thinking about what you're going to cook at this time of year and how that meets that moment. And I love that.
Yes.
I wish I was a better gardener though. I wish I could grow all my own veg like my granddad did, but one day, maybe in my dotage. Everything dies at the moment.
So funny. I guess first, tell me a bit about ritual. If someone wants to, I'm just thinking of how you were describing creating, not just like having a thought about something, but kind of creating moments around it.
Yeah.
That shift. And some people learn to do that with their breathing or like taking off their shoes.
Yes, which I love to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote about ritual and enchantment because I got asked about it so much after writing Wintering, where I talked a little bit about ritual, talked about the midwinter solstice. And I realised that I didn't have any understanding of ritual at all. And I kept having to answer these questions about it. And you're thinking on your feet. But also, I think I always felt a bit embarrassed about something like ritual, like the idea that you might make a bigger moment out of this basic thing you're doing. Just seemed a bit silly and cringy to me. But I've lent into it. I'm fully converted. And I think again, it's like another little bump you need to get over, that you're not a teenager anymore and you can choose to have a ritual without feeling like it's not cool, and that's fine. But it gives you so much, because what it does is it opens up a space that you can bring yourself into in that moment. So it gives you a set of actions that you perform, and they could be really simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be like lighting a candle and watching the sunset, or something like that. Nice. Like very simple. But it shouldn't dictate how you feel. You bring your current state of being to that moment. And if anything, the ritual tells you how you feel. Yeah. It shows you, because maybe you don't know. Like, we're all walking around in this big jumble all the time. Yeah. And whenever I pause to just notice the sun rising at an equinox or something like that, I think, oh, I'm here now. Like, here I am. Here's how I feel. Here's how I've progressed since, hopefully it progressed, but since, or unraveled, like since the last time I stood and did this. And maybe here are all the other people here with me. And I get the opportunity to tend to them in a way that I wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
It's just a slowness, isn't it?
I like that a lot more than some of the versions I can think of that are very emotionally prescriptive.
Oh, I hate that.
People love a good gratitude journal, and I know people who have really, people who feel like they are unable to notice it otherwise. But the idea that everything has to be mashed into happiness and joy.
Don't get me started on this.
I think we are.
I'm
of a similar mind on this one.
I'm so troubled by that. I find it so patronizing for a start. Like, you down there, be grateful. Be grateful.
Yeah.
And like, actually, let's not go around telling each other to fake our emotions. Like, there's been so much of that in history. And it's no better to tell people to fake happy emotions like gratitude and joy than it is to have a stiff upper lip. Like, it's the same thing. Like, let's just stop telling people how to feel. And the crazy thing is that if you stop and engage with the world, like, gratitude starts really flowing, but it springs up naturally. Like, by all means, notice gratitude when it's coming.
Yeah.
But let's not say, right now, come on, time for some gratitude. I can think of loads of situations when it's really legit to feel absolutely not a shred of gratitude.
Yes.
And that's fine. It's really fine. You know this really well.
I like the idea, though, that you could be watching a sunset and you could just feel rage.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the sunset inspired today was just an insane amount of homicidal, very directed thought about a situation or person.
Yeah, I think that feels really real to me.
It reminds me of I was watching a comedian doing a set on like things that are natural, as if like nature always just meant like universally good in every way, and he's like, you know what's natural? A sheer rock face. You know what's natural? A pack of wolves.
Yeah,
I really liked that.
True.
He opened up the category of like, it's otherwise I think I put it in a very like essential oils place in my mind, where it's like
everything's
it's like a spa soundtrack.
Oh, it's such a grim flattening of human experience. Like, why do we want nature to be nice? I think our weird attitude to nature is beginning to become problematic, because it gets quite eugenic when it's taken, if you push people really hard on why nature's so good, it's like, well,
oh no.
Well, there's a bit of survival of the fittest that eventually eases its way in. And also there's this weird sense of like, what is nature and what isn't? Yeah. And I don't think it's in any way that clearly defined. And why aren't we nature? Yeah. Why or why is some of the stuff we do nature and some not? Like, who's drawing the lines on why and when? It's just, it's not a very useful concept, really.
It's only good stuff and explaining why some animals didn't live.
It's pretty.
It's pretty is nature.
Yeah. Well, it's very Instagram, and God knows I love Instagram, but it's that like, oh, it's lilac season. I've got flowers in my house, and I'm always like, well, in my background, lilacs are very bad luck, ladies. So please stop bringing them into your houses. Never have a lilac in your house. Not in Kent.
Really?
Bad luck.
How bad?
Well, they're harbingers of death, so you would not die through a lilac.
You heard it first, or I heard it last.
So lilac season on Instagram for me is like me going, "Whoa, you don't want to do that." Not really. I'm no longer as superstitious as I.
You're like, I'm no longer. I'm only slightly.
But there's that little twinge that comes up still, like, oh, you can't do that. But yeah. But I find it much more interesting that we might have once had a much more intimate relationship with the natural world that meant that we could develop a superstition about something as pretty as a lilac.
That's so true. Yeah.
Whereas now it's just all bland to us. It's just pretty. It's just this flat, storyless realm that we're like, oh, I've invented bringing lilacs into a vase. Like, you really haven't.
Yeah, that's right. My dad's a historian of Christmas, and this is one of his. This is my welcome to my childhood.
He and I are going to be really good friends. You know that.
I think he would love that. This is one of my favorite. I think one of my borrowed favorite things through him about why he loves all of the separate Christmas customs is in every tiny little thing, the plants you decorate with, the ones you use to remember, the ones you use to ward off, the ones is that you get this this heavily peopled feeling.
Yeah.
This rich interpretive world.
Right. Yeah.
And then it comes in the middle of the darkest time of year, and then it demands that the light be brought in, and it won't be otherwise.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm writing a little piece about Midwinter at the moment that's going to be an audio book.
Well, may I introduce
and
you
I
to
need
Jerry
to meet,
Bowler?
I must meet him. But I love what we do in that darkness, and what it says about us, and we've reached a point where that darkness no longer seems menacing, or we can push it away enough that we don't have to engage with it. But I would urge people to engage with it and to feel that fear that comes at Midwinter, because it does land on us, and that gloom and that sense that the world will never get going again.
Yeah.
Because it always does.
Yeah.
And people had to find a way to have faith in that coming back, but also to build meaning around it that made them feel like they had agency within that moment. It's a very cool time of year. I'm not done with winter yet.
Yeah.